Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did I missed it if you did. Did you give us any timetable for when you might be looking at trying to get back into Kiev, or particularly starting the process?
We're starting the process to look at it now, Senator. And the Secretary would like us to get in there this month.
That's a good goal, at least. I spoke briefly about the issue in Beijing with our people there and being in what they call the fever prisons there. What can you tell us about that?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm pretty sure we have not allowed any officers to go into the so-called fever hospitals. When officers come in from outside the United States, they have to quarantine, and there are quarantine hotels, I believe, but let me double-check that fact. But we have objected to the possibility that people who are already stationed in China, if they test positive, going into a fever hospital. There was a threat at one point a few months ago where an officer might be separated from their child because the child tested positive. So we have made that clear to the government of the People's Republic that that is not acceptable to us. We're now on ordered departure status in Shanghai because of the lockdown. A number of officers were having challenges with that, so we've skinnied down substantially because of that. And it's something Ambassador Burns is watching very closely. I know Undersecretary Bass just talked to him about it last night because you can see the reports of Beijing where they're imposing more testing requirements right now.
I have been informed that there have been U.S. personnel that have been forced into fever hospitals. You might want to check on that. And if that's the case, it probably ought to be revisited what's happening. So that's the information I have. If yours,
that was not my information, Senator, but I'll double check.
I hope you'll check on that for me. I would appreciate that. One of the issues that it's been reoccurring with me for some time is getting. I understand there's a level of risk always in everything that's done. Obviously, you want to reduce the risk as much as possible, but reducing it has really impeded our people from getting out more than what I think that they should. And I've been complaining about this for some time. Is there any thought at all about revisiting the policies in that regard?
Yeah, thank you, Senator, and thank you for your work on the Accountability Review Board process. It's definitely something we are working on, and Undersecretary Bass, before he was confirmed, in a temporary assignment where he looked at this very issue with a retired diplomatic security officer. And so I'd say a couple of things about it. One, we have in statute some security standards that were put in place. I confess I worked on them in the late 90s after the East Africa bombing that imposed pretty rigid standards for our facilities in terms of what we need from setback from the street and the size of the walls around the complex, et cetera. We think we can relook at some of that because of the advancements in technology where you can maybe don't need as much setback. We have tried to encourage people, and we've put out risk principles that had been looked at last fall, and in the fall of 2020 by the last team, and we revalidated them, and I sent out a workforce message calling everyone's attention to it. And what we're trying to do is make people risk aware and not risk averse, because this is a risky business that we're in. It's not to say people should be gambling with people's lives, but they should take smart risks. That's a cultural change that we're going to have to keep working on, but we're with you. We completely agree with what you said previously.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And just to be clear, I'm not complaining at all about the review of the thickness of the walls, setbacks, and that sort of thing. I think that's a job for somebody who has clear expertise in that area. What I'm talking about more is the restrictions on movement of personnel. I can tell you that out there amongst the community, the belief is that we're under the most restrictive regulations and constraints that there are for diplomats from various countries. And I know there's a lot of people that feel they could do better if they could have less restriction in that regard. Obviously, risk adversity is something that we're all concerned with, but on the other hand, there's also a job that's got to be done. So I appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah, I completely agree, Senator Risch. Obviously, the Accountability Review Board process is one of the things hanging over people's heads as they calculate risk, and other investigations that have occurred in the past tend to make people a little more risk averse. So we appreciate your encouraging us in this respect.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.